Okay, I will call the regular meeting of Tuesday, April 18th to order, and welcome everybody. Can we have a roll call, please?
Director Cardonish.
Here.
Giardini is absent. Logan.
Here.
Pearson. Here. And Peterson.
Here. Sam, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just want to note, Director Giardini did inform the board president and myself that she would be missing, if she made the meeting, it'd be at the very end of the meeting, she had a conflict tonight.
Okay, there was nothing to report on the closed session that we had at the end of the March 21st meeting. So any board member would like to change the order of business here? Seeing none. Members of the public may address the board on any items of interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board, but not on the agenda today. So next item is a consent agenda. We have 4 items: the minutes of the March 21st meeting, treasury report for February 2023, budget amendment for the fire station bathroom upgrade, and a budget amendment for Parks and Rec truck. Would any of the board members like to question on those or pull it off the agenda?
I'd like to pull out item D, and I'll pull out C as well, please.
C and D?
Yes.
Okay, you want to discuss them or you just have questions?
We'll discuss them.
Okay, so could I get a
I'll make a
motion
motion.
for A and B?
Yes, I'll make a motion that the board approve consent agenda A, the minutes of the board's March 21st, 2023 meeting, and the treasurer's report for the period ending February 2023.
I'll second that. Roll call.
Director is Logan.
Oh,
Aye.
hold it, wait a minute. Does any public have any questions? Sorry about that. Okay, roll call, sorry.
Director is Logan.
Aye.
Peterson.
Yes.
Cardonish.
Aye.
Giardini is absent and Pearson.
Aye.
Okay, the consent agenda item number C, the budget amendment for fire station bathroom upgrade and the MDC replacement.
Okay, yeah, so I was just wondering on this item, I mean, I realize the need for it. But so has it already gone out to bid, or are we just estimating $25,000?
It has gone out to bid. That was the first estimate. We're waiting on 2 more bids back, but we use that as a baseline for the cost.
Okay, so it's just replacing the existing, like, as you know, the shower tub and things like that.
Shower tub, the flooring, there's some damage on the flooring, damage on the actual vanity, replacing that, and that's it.
Okay, and then, so we're not remodeling in a way to like separate, you know, like any other changes, we're not making any changes to it.
No, no, it's strictly a take the bath, the tub, shower unit out. Repair any damage, water damage, mold, anything like that behind it. And then install a new shower, not tub, unit, and then add the flooring and new vanity.
Okay, so because it says that it wasn't meant to be for a full-time staff 24/7, so it's still not going to be for a full-time, so are we?
No, the only issue with that is the real safety hazard was that tub. People stepping over that, so that was the intent of that. That's not designed for, you know, fire station quick exits and.
Okay, I just want to make sure that whatever, I mean, I'm just wondering, these changes we're making, they're gonna last a while? Because I mean.
Yes, I mean, but this is not intended for like a remodeling of the the bathroom itself. It's just to fix the issues that are currently happening with the leaking, the water damage, the mold, those types of things.
Yeah, one of our dilemmas is really less about, this is really mostly repair. What we're deficient in is the number of bathrooms.
Yeah,
You know, we have 3 people who basically using one,
In
One-
both sexes too.
right?
Correct.
So,
we can't change that.
yeah, well,
That's
it's
what's
not-
funny while you're doing this.
there really isn't there isn't really space up there to try to do that, and the long-term plan has us essentially not using that area for the sleeping quarters in the long term. It would be the plans that we've accepted, the conceptual plans have a constructed new 2-story facility behind the apparatus bay. The current upstairs could be converted to training room. There are probably some other uses that it could have in the interim, where a bathroom will be handy, will be used, but not in the way that it is now.
Correct.
So-
And splitting that bathroom would add additional costs because we'd have to get into plumbing and a variety of other things to add another shower or bathroom, toilet or component to it. And then it would really restrict the space on that first bedroom. So there's just not the space up there to do anything like that.
Well, I understand you because but having seen those bathrooms, I think the repairs that are being proposed are not for aesthetic purposes. It's really to address the mold. And a bathtub, firefighters have no use for a bathtub.
No.
I can't imagine you taking bubble baths.
I can see that picture.
Not in my 30-year career.
No. I was kind of surprised when I saw that it was a bathtub, but
Okay, all right, so, yeah, so I'm okay with that, so I'll make,
Any question other board members might have? The public, does any have any questions on that item? Okay, the next item then.
well, I will make a
I'm
motion
sorry.
on this one.
Yeah,
I'll make
go ahead.
a motion on item 7C to go ahead and approve that item.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. Welcome.
Director Spartanish,
Aye.
Pearson. Aye. Gardini is absent, Logan
I,
and Peterson.
Yes. Okay, the Parks and Rec maintenance.
Yeah, so I just wanna, this $70,000 truck that we're buying, so I just wanna get some information on that. If what it is it? and,
This is a-
brand new, is it brand new, is it
Yeah,
used?
this is a new vehicle. This would be a new vehicle. I'm hoping that we can get something for less. But the problem right now is with fleet vehicles. Up until maybe 2-3 years ago. When a public agency bought a fleet, I'll call it fleet vehicle. These are spec'd out for a work truck. So this is gonna be a 3/4 ton, single cab truck with it. When I say a utility bed, it's got cabinets on all sides. You can store equipment in it. In this case, irrigation parts and tools for maintaining the parks. Those are lockable cabinets. We have that type of a utility bed now. Those add about 10 grand over the cost of a normal pickup truck bed. It has a ladder rack, racked so you can put long equipment on the top. The current truck is 20 years old and the engine seized. We were actually preparing to include a request to replace it in next year's budget. But the engine seized and the repair is like $7,000 to replace it. But the truck is beat. It's not serviceable. It's not running at this point. Anyways, we can, so since vehicles are really hard to come by right now, there are the state bid list, to my knowledge, the dealers that deal in the state bid list are out of vehicles at the moment. The price of 70 grand is the out the door price of a local dealer that is not part of the state bid list. So that'd be on the high side. We're hopeful that we can, if we get an authorization on this, we can actually submit a purchase order request in May for a truck that might be arriving in August for about $6,000 or $7,000 less. But there's no guarantee that we would be able to get in on that next release of vehicles. It's just an issue, it's just part of the sort of shortage that you might have been, if you've been shopping for vehicles over the past couple of years have ran into, this was 3 years ago, a $50,000 truck.
It's gone up.
gone up a lot. But it's you know, we need something because when you put the utility bed has a lot of additional weight, and so a half-ton truck doesn't do well with that additional, with all the cabinetry on the back of the truck. Plus, we tow regularly with this vehicle. It's towing the mower or the tractor or the dump trailer to the park sites, you know, with our crew. So right now, we're sort of swapping vehicles based on what the need is of the day. We have a GMC Canyon that is often parked right here, that is out with the parks right now, but that vehicle is not equipped to tow anything. So any day that we're mowing, they've got to swap with a utility vehicle, a water or sewer truck, so that they can tow the equipment. We think we can probably get by for 4 or 5 months doing that, 3 or 4 months. Certainly not ideal if we were going to save $6,000 or $7,000 bucks. But if we have another vehicle go down, that's gonna put us in a pinch. So
Okay, where is this money coming from?
it's be coming from the parks asset replacement fund.
How much money is in that?
Oh, about 570,000. Let me see. I just looked at that. It was part of your treasury report.
And then, what other items,
511,000.
what other items do you think will be coming up that we may need that money for in the?
Well, if you had anything significant fail, like right now, we're dealing with the problems at the community center. That we're trying to get the oven repaired, for example. That's, if we can't get parts for that, that'll be 10 grand or so. It's a commercial, 48-inch commercial oven. It's a big dollar item that would come out of there. Any major upgrades or repairs to those buildings or at the park. For example, we spent money out of it last year, about a year ago, on the controller at Everest Park, the sprinkler system controller. So it was about basically any existing asset that has value of over $5,000, like any replacement cost that's over $5 grand. We had to put a new roof on a building or something like that.
So I have a question along those same lines. So in the asset replacement budget for Park and Rec, you had mentioned that you were going to put into next year's budget for a truck. Were there any other asset replacements that you were planning to include in that budget
Yes,
beyond the truck?
we're still developing those right now, but yeah, we're planning on coming forward with a recommendation to do slurry sealing at the parking lots of 2 of the facilities, the community center and German Park.
And roughly the cost of that, I think. I'm trying to remember what it was when we did it before.
So cost of things have really gone up.
Well, yeah,
So we're working on some new estimates, but let's say for ballpark, 30,000-40,000.
okay. So any other items?
Asset replacement items?
Yes,
Well, we may come forward with a recommendation to buy a small tractor. But I'm not sure it's gonna qualify as an asset replacement. Right now, we have a sort of a medium-sized tractor that's used at Selby, and it's also used at the parks. It's on its last leg. It's 25 years old. And so likely that would be new dollars, not asset replacement dollars.
so right now, the 2 items is the resealing of the asphalt, the truck, which is roughly the 2 of them would be $120,000.
Roughly. Can you think of any others that were on that list?
Yeah, I can go grab it. Okay.
The truck is, we don't have a truck.
Yeah.
There's no
So-
option but to replace it, except for
Yeah,
perhaps something that would be a shorter term solution.
well, like Director Fardanish, I'm just trying to get an idea of how much, if we've got $511,000 is how much are we gonna be eating away next year? And I realize that there's not much we can do, but I would encourage, if at all possible, to try and work out some great deal on this truck.
Well, that's what we're,
Do they offer any financing? I mean, cause when I looked at the $70,000, I was like, wow, that's a really expensive truck. I don't know what trucks cost. But then I know that in Paso, I looked there, and they offer 0% interest on a new truck. So that's why I was asking. If
yeah, I mean, they
offer
wouldn't,
any
through the state
financing.
bid list, I mean, it's gonna depend on
Yeah.
if we end up having to go through just a market rate, like through a dealer, like a standard buyer would. So as a government agency, we're able to piggyback on these state bids, that where dealers submit
They're
kind of a pre, hey, this year we're gonna offer this vehicle, this price, and they know they don't have to deal much with us, right? It's just a matter of submitting a PO and you pick it up when it's ready. There's no sales cost, so they can mark the vehicle. They typically get vehicles quite a bit lower than what you'd see. And maybe in normal times, prior to the last couple of years, you might have been about the same vehicle if you haggled long enough or negotiated with enough folks, but they were pretty competitive cost. But they're typically for vehicles that are intended for fleet purchases. These are, this would be a white truck with a white utility bed. It's not typically gonna be purchased by a
Consumer.
average driver, business use
Okay.
vehicle. They're pretty, this is gonna have a vinyl bench seat, vinyl
Got it.
floor. It's for getting dirty boots in and out.
Do you do any type of like detailing on the car to mark it as a district vehicle or?
Yeah, we put a district logo on the vehicle, just like you see on our vehicles, so there'll be a
Is
district.
that encompassed in the cost or is that?
That'll be additional, but we own those
Okay.
logo vehicles, so we just put them on.
Is there option for like a trade-in, even though if it's inoperable, but for parts or anything like that?
We would probably take the vehicle to like 777 auction and get what we can out of it, and that money, the proceeds of it would come back into the asset replacement fund. In this case, it's a non-operable vehicle. Somebody will buy it for something. I mean, it's got a utility bed and somebody will be willing to do something with it.
And then what's the market for if we wanna try to buy used? I mean, I know with regular cars, used.
I don't know. I haven't looked at all into it.
I mean, like I'm talking about something like 5 years old, usually they have to have more already.
Yeah, I mean, we could get something for less. I guess my view is, unless we were able to get a really great deal, we're in this parks business in perpetuity. This is a permanent need, not a temporary need. And so if you bought something used that you could get 12 years out of, instead of something new, you might get 15 or 20 years out of, you're just replacing it sooner. If the need was gonna go away, then it maybe makes sense to get something for a shorter term. We can look and see if there's something like that available. Right now, we're struggling to find what we need even new.
Yeah.
So-
I know, that's what I was hoping, I mean, if there was a way to hold off for just a little bit longer, but yeah. it's a bad
Well, I don't think we
situation.
come with the
Yeah.
car running though.
Yeah, I mean, so I think our goal would be to see if there's an opportunity to get on to get on a May order under current pricing with a delivery sometime this summer and get by for 4 or 5 months swapping vehicles. If that looks, if we're not able to do that, we really are not in a position to wait a year or longer for a vehicle.
I'm just concerned with having issues with, our fire, with trucks with the fire department, we have,
We have all the, this is a 20.
Like owning a home, there's always something that's needed.
It's an old piece of equipment and it's even before this engine failure, it was due for replacement.
Maybe we're letting our cars, I mean, maybe we should have a more regular schedule replacement, so that way we are aware that as it's happening, rather than wait till the last minute where it becomes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is typical, like we budgeted for a replacement vehicle last year before it failed, and although we don't have that vehicle here yet, because again, back to the opportunity to get them on the state bid list. But yeah, this is, I think, unusual that we have one that's just totally out of commission, not really repairable, not without putting a new engine in.
It sounds like you've got an interim solution.
We're getting by.
Yeah.
This happened about a week and a half ago. And we're getting by, but this is we have a real daily need for this piece of equipment.
Any other questions from the board?
No.
Any questions from the public?
I don't think 70,000 is inappropriate amount to pay for a new truck, all the stuff that's gonna be on it.
I don't either. I know a couple friends that have gotten a Dodge 2 1-ton Rams, well over 90 grand.
Oh, yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
I know, the trucks,
You know.
like 100,000.
I'd rather than see these.
Anyway, can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion that the board approve the budget amendment for the park maintenance truck in the amount of $70,000.
I'll second. Roll call, please.
Commissioners Logan,
Aye.
Peterson,
Yes.
Bardonish.
Aye.
Gardini is absent and Pearson.
Aye.
Okay, on to the business items. review of the investment policy.
Yeah, actually, Natalie Clark can introduce this item and. So. go ahead.
Yeah, so tonight we have the current district's investment policy in front of you for review and discussion. And then I also have on Zoom, Mark Edelman with King Capital Advisors to go over our current CD strategies and answer any questions that the board might have on our CDs and some other policies. Hello, Mark, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about you guys?
Good, thank you.
Fantastic. Do you guys just want me to jump right in?
So maybe just real quickly, we, like I said, if you had any questions on the investment policy, we can address those. And then, if at the conclusion of this discussion, there's some consensus about making a change to our investment strategy, it likely or possibly would require an amendment to the investment policy. In which case if there's consensus, we could draft those changes and bring it back to you for formal consideration at a future meeting. And then, yeah, we can, if you don't have any questions about the policies that stands now, we can turn this over to Mark and he can jump in on the particularly on the CDs and other options that might be available to us.
Any questions or any comments on the current policy as it stands?
Do we actually, in light of kind of the recent financial debacles, is there kind of a strategy to safeguard as to that for the future?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if that's reflected in the policy for future.
It's reflected in the policy today. So certainly would be going forward. So our policy is based on the limits of the California Government Code. We cannot get very aggressive with investments. We're limited by the Government Code about the tools we have. And then our policy further limits that beyond the limits of the Government Code. But for example, we're limited to investments like through a CD that are insured by the FDIC or another tool like that. So even if we could buy a CD at millions of dollars, that was a great investment choice. Because the FDIC insurance is limited to 250,000, that's how much money we can have in that account.
And what about the institutions that are selected? I mean, I know there's some that were kind of red flagged because of what occurred.
Yeah, I mean, so our policy doesn't address, it just addresses whether the funds are insured or not, as opposed to sort of a more detailed analysis or on a bank by bank choice or something.
well, if there's anything else, I'm happy to chime in and help answer some of those questions as well throughout my try to be brief presentation, so to speak. So what we do, like you guys have just discussed, is we focus really mainly on CDs. I think I'll probably start with the California Code since that's what we were discussing in the investment policy. So the California Code 53601 shows the guidelines of what public institutions such as yourself in California can and cannot invest in. You guys are correct as your current investment policy.
Mark, I'm sorry. Your kind of audio is kind of going in and out. Sometimes I think you can hear you pretty well, and then maybe when you sit back further, it's not picking you up as well.
Okay, yeah.
We're losing your audio about half the time.
Sorry about that. Does this sound better right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I feel like I'm in everyone's face on the camera. I apologize, but for audio's sake, you'll get the full view. My apologies in advance. So your policy is more restrictive to the California Code than what is allowed. So to your point, we have about around 50 different CDs laddered in a manner throughout 0 to 5 years. And so we do that to help hedge against interest rate risk. That's the one thing with fixed income that you try to mitigate as best as possible. So implementing a laddered strategy by having different CDs along the yield curve helps mitigate this. So as one CD matures, You're able to reinvest at either a higher or lower rate. If it's lower, well, then you're happy with the CDs you're holding on to. If it's higher, then hey, now we're in a better position. So the California code and most public funds that I work with, they usually buy a few different asset classes. One is CDs, of course, US government agencies, which are typically the Federal Home Loan Bank, Federal Farm Credit, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and the third is sometimes corporates. And the difference between the three is the CDs are FDIC insured. The US government agencies are AAA rated, like Federal Home Loan Bank, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, by Moody's, AA rated by S&P, and it is implied. They are not full faith and guarantee, but they are a very safe instrument that many institutions use, and they buy millions and millions of dollars in a single issue. And it's viewed throughout California and other institutions. I mean, I work with like 25 different or probably more different public funds throughout the state. And it's viewed as a widely acceptable, safe investment. And the third are corporates, which are a little bit more aggressive. It's based off more about the ratings and it's backed by the actual corporation. So, you know, Apple is essentially the same rating as a US government agency. They are not FDIC insured. There's no backing. It's straight by the company. So their yield may not be as strong as something like maybe a Bank of America or another type of financial note that's not as highly rated, but may give you a better yield in return. One asset class, whether you decide to make any changes or not, and it's not new, but it's becoming more prevalent, is credit unions. And this is something I definitely recommend in your policy because essentially the credit unions are a sister, I guess, if you will, option to the CDs. CDs are backed by FDIC insurance, you know, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, backed by the Treasury, and the NCUA, National Credit Union Administration, has the same rules: 250,000 of insurance. It's just a different, I guess, branch or arm of the Treasury that insures credit unions. And there's been a lot more being issued, and they have some really fantastic rates. And so this might give you guys another safe option if you want to just take a baby step and maybe not try your hand at, you know, corporates or agencies, and you know, amend the policy to at least put that in, so that way we can just have more options. If they have a better rate, I don't see why we wouldn't pick the better rate for a credit union versus a CD, unless anyone has any specific issues with it. But well, let me stop there. Is there any questions so far? I know I've probably just thrown a lot of information.
So is it our policy currently, we cannot invest in credit unions?
Right, because credit unions are not backed by the FDIC. They're backed by a different, so if we wanted to, if we want, yeah, it would, I agree, I think it's just a safe, but the policy would need to be amended to explicitly permit credit union, credit unions. And that would give us, if we did that, then there might be more opportunities to invest under similar levels of risk.
Okay.
Which is to say, not very risky.
Yeah, yeah.
Correct.
Credit unions are.
Right, I think per the policy, there's 4 options we have. This, you know, LAIF, Local Agency Investment Fund, to park some cash. FDIC insured, you know, accounts in a banking or savings or loans, basically a CD, FDIC CD. Intra-district loans and intra-district funds of loans with a fair rate of return, something that you know, I don't think is typically utilized. And then it says investments collateralized as per government code section 53652, which is a little bit different. That's more like an investment. If you did buy a CD, let's say $1 million, what the bank would do is put up, would buy Treasury as collateral. So it costs them more money, and they'll back your CD at like 110%. So they have some value, because if the market value of the Treasury moves, they have to add more collateral. So the banks don't, some banks will do that, but it costs them money. So typically in return, they want to give you a lower rate. I think that's for more people that don't have options or just, you know, or don't have the wherewithal to be able to do something that we've been successful at. So those are really your 4 options. So of those 4, right now, you know, you have some money in LAIF, which most agencies do, and you're buying the CDs. So I did send over, I believe Natalie probably printed out, so you may have a copy, the California code. It's a sheet that shows you the, 25 different, 25 or so different options of different asset classes. And so you have, only one. So if, like I said, if you wanted to add more and not utilize them, that's okay. Or if you want to just say, hey, we just want to utilize the credit unions and maybe make that amendment to start, that's always an option. I always like to say it's better to have the options and then not utilize them if an opportunity ever arises. But have that available if it does come up. Exactly, yes, that's the sheet right there. So and on that sheet, they talk about everything from treasuries, the US government agencies I mentioned, buying, muni bonds, buying, I mean, things that it's a little bit, it's almost too many options, so to speak. I don't really know that many people that utilize a lot of them. There's just really the main three I'd say were, the agencies, some corporates, and of course CDs are now credit unions, but they give you, a bunch of other, options, I guess, if there's districts that are wanting to do certain things. Some of them are very large and may utilize some of these kind of commercial paper or something, but I don't think that would be prudent for you as the district. I think the CDs and credit unions are a very safe, conservative route with a lot of diversification.
I have a question. What is typically a penalty if we draw the money earlier than when it's matures?
Sure, great question. So there's not a set penalty. So the way these CDs work is they're traded just like if you were to buy a treasury. So accrued interest always travels with the bond, meaning that if you bought a 5-year CD and in 2 years you wanted to sell it and you have some accrued interest that hasn't paid out if it's on a semi-annual basis. So maybe you've owned it for 2 years and 3 months. And so you're still waiting on another, full semi-annual payment and you decide to sell it. What happens is you get to keep all the interest you kept and all the accrued. The market value and the principal value can have some fluctuation if sold prior to maturity. So instead of like a penalty, it's more about what the market is doing at the moment. And so if you own a 1% CD and all the rates are at 5%, you will have a lower market value where it could be if you bought 200,000, maybe you can only get 195,000 back. Of course, you want to account for all the interest you've earned. Maybe you've held it for a certain amount of time and you have more interest than what the principal amount you can get back would be if sold early. And you can weigh your options. Of course, the other is true, where if you own a 4% CD and all the new CDs are at 1% and you bought a $200,000 CD, you would get to keep all the interest the same way. And maybe instead of only getting back 200,000, you get back 205,000 for selling something that's above the current going rate, so to speak. So not a set penalty, more about the different market value. But when we buy the CDs, that's why we have the ladder to give us some flexibility, some liquidity, picking different spots in the yield curve. So we try not to run into that type of option or forced sale, if you will, if we had to raise money.
So I'm a little confused. So you're talking about laddered CDs, correct?
Correct, yes.
And not just your typical bank CD.
It's a typical bank CD in the sense that the ladder is the strategy. The ladder of CDs is, buying everything from 0 to 5 years and having different maturities along the yield curve, as shown in this. So obviously we're already partway into 2023. We only have a few more CDs coming due. And then you can see at the bottom in bold, each year, these are what the various maturities are coming due.
Well, I think what we're trying to, let me interject for just a moment, because I think what we're trying to do is comparison, because I think you're speaking to ladder CDs, and I think we want to make sure we understand the CDs that we have today that have a maturity date. The question is do we have a penalty if we sell those CDs before the maturity date?
Right, yeah, that was exactly what I was just explaining. If the CDs, it's based on the market value. So just like if you own a treasury or any other type of traded security, there's be a market value. I mean, imagine buying a stock at $5 and then, forget about the interest and then it's worth 10, you can make, that's what the market is allowing. Then of course, you bought it at $5 and it's now worth $2.50. you would have a market loss. If you hold it to maturity, it matures at what you buy it at, and it's just like buying any other CD and holding it to maturity. I'm only talking about is you guys are having to sell something prior, or you choose to sell something prior to maturity. Does that make sense? The latter is just having different CDs maturing at different times.
Yeah,
These CDs are, you're having the option here to have all these different CDs in one essentially brokerage account without having to go out and buy, looking up all these different banks in your area, doing a ton of legwork, trying to figure out what you own, trying to keep it consolidated, and it saves just endless amounts of time to be able to have it all in one nice and neat place and to get a variety of CDs all over the place.
So have you looked at all our CDs that we have? I'm sure you have, and you know, there's some of them that are paying 0.5%, 0.4, 0.45. So have you looked at them to see the market value and see if the risk and benefits, if it makes sense to maybe sell those based on the market value and get CDs that are paying 4 or 5%?
Sure, yeah, we've had some discussions about it. So with the way the rates are right now is a very attractive buying opportunity, not as attractive selling opportunity. But of course, when we bought some of those low rates were at zero. So we were trying to get something, nothing was paying anything. So we tried to put a few together. Out of the 50 CDs you own, it's about 8 or 9 CDs that are sub 1%. So and when I was talking to Natalie, and I know we've had discussions with Jeff, Natalie, that, you guys still have additional capital. So to avoid taking a loss unnecessarily, you're still able to participate with the additional capital that you have at your disposal in these 4 or 5% CDs that are available versus selling those early. Now, in some cases, it may make sense down the road, but at the current rates, it would be a pretty hefty loss. It's doable. Of course, it's possible. I can put together numbers, but with the additional funds, I haven't seen the need necessarily to force sale losses. As these come due, I mean, the longest one is just a little over 3 years. So I know while it's no fun that it's not a great rate, it's just a small portion of the overall portfolio. And as these maturities come due, we'll be able to participate and buy some higher returns, which I've always recommended in these days because I don't think we're long for these rates. I think maybe possible, this is a guesstimate, it's a moving target, but it looks like what I've been reading and hearing consistently is that probably toward the end of the year, we may see a decline in rates overall. I think for beyond in 2024, it's pretty certain that the economy at some point, if debatable, if not now, will go into a recession or some kind, could be deep, could be not as more shallow, but I think that rates will go lower. As the Fed has mentioned, their target rate is 2%. So if they get rates lower, new CDs coming out at 2 or 2.5%, maybe 3%, the market values and what you own should go up naturally because it's getting shorter on the yield curve. And if the rates come down a little bit, maybe we try to trade out and capture something at that point. But right now the losses would be, substantial. It could be, a $25,000 or $30,000 loss on an individual CD, which could be made up. But if you have additional capital participate, may not be as urgent as if we had no money left, so we're trying to make the best of the situation. We may study that more heavily.
So the additional capital that you're talking about is 9,874,000, the LAIF.
Late,
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Okay, so that's at 2.6% right now. So if we switch it out, so that's what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean,
Basically,
we purchased a couple of CDs just in the last month. I mean, so the difference between the CD is, if you had an urgent need for the cash, you'd have to sell the CD potentially at a loss. So LAIF is funds available tomorrow.
Yeah.
No penalty. So,
Yeah, that interest rate is, well,
it's variable.
6-7 weeks old. I mean, it's
gone up.
probably closer to 3%. I think I haven't looked at it, but Yeah,
So
2
using
point
some of
last
that
I
money.
checked.
So using.
Yeah, we don't need $9 million in cash, but we want to maintain a lot of liquidity. With our investment pools. I mean, that's the business that we're in. You know, you could face a major emergency and need funds. And so we need to make sure that we always have enough liquidity to meet not only the district's predicted needs, but needs in the case of emergency without having to take potentially significant losses by cleaning out these CDs. So that's why when Mark described this latter approach, the idea is we want to always have money maturing so that we can reinvest it down the road. And then if we know it's maturing and we can wait for it, we can predict our cash flow needs. But you're right, we're doing fine, and we have plenty of cash in Leif. We're not near a position of concern, but you wouldn't take 8 million of that and put it in other long-term investments or something. And keep in mind, like, we just some of our funds, like maybe half our water and sewer funds, we have a really steady cash flow, right? We get money in every single month. But fire, for example, gets money twice a year. They have a big cash flow need. We've got to float half a year's, maybe 7 months worth of costs based on April's income. We won't get any more money for the fire fund to speak of after April until December. None. So we need a substantial cash flow to move that forward.
So I mean, how much are you comfortable having in that account?
Well, I don't know. We haven't, up until now, our big challenge has been just finding new CDs that are available. I think if we add the credit unions into the mix, then there might be more. I don't know, Mark, how many credit unions have competitive market rate or competitive rates right now that we would consider?
Quite a few. I mean, they come out weekly typically, but there's some out there for sure. I mean, I've seen a few. I mean, they're callable, but there's some that have 5%. I've seen some that were the other day, a couple of folks bought like a 5-year 4.65. And keep in mind with this also, when I'm planning and I'm discussing with Natalie and Jeff about planning CDs out, not only with the ladder, I'm picking specific investments, whether if it's callable, I want it to have a high enough rate. And by callable, the issuer after some lockout period has the ability to call the funds back. Why would they do that? Well, if rates were to go down, they may decide to elect to give you your money back, and then you have the option to reinvest. Well, I'm taking a look at if the rate is high enough and it's worth the 1 year or however long it may be to earn that rate, it's certainly worth it. On the flip side, I'm also looking to say, hey, here's a 495 CD and here's a 475 CD, but the 475 is not callable. I'm going to say, you know what? I think we should take a little bit lower rate to lock this in. Now, we're in a high interest rate environment where rates have been, very high or going on an upward trend. When things go the opposite direction, CDs can have just as much nice price appreciation. And so I may be calling Natalie and Jeff saying, hey guys, listen, we got this, 3.5% CD and we can take a profit, and there's an opportunity to extend out maybe 6 months and lock in this other CD. And now you're going to increase your rate with a small extension and take a profit, keep all your interest and get a better yield. And that's what's happened in the past. It's just the current environment has been more prone to, buying. We've got a couple at a low rate, and the yields have shot up fairly quickly. So you and many, many other people were in a position where, hey, some of the values, hey, what can we do? And it may or may not sense, case by case. But to Jeff's point, yeah, whenever we find a great opportunity, I don't just try to send willy-nilly. I try to find the best stuff that makes the most sense. And I know the portfolio, so I want to fill in all the holes to constantly have different maturities coming due for you guys to provide a good sense of liquidity. And keep in mind, currently as constructed, it's I don't want to say it's a guesstimate. It's kind of a down and dirty number, but currently the portfolio is kicking off about $380,000 annually. Obviously, that can fluctuate as CDs come due, so you reinvest. It depends on what the rate is, but you guys should feel very happy knowing that you have insured money that's kicking off, $380,000 a year, which I'm sure can pay for a lot of stuff and help in many ways.
Do credit unions, credit union CDs, are they less likely to be callable? Or are they same as regular banks in terms of callability?
There are both options. It really depends on the issuer. There are so many different issuers that come out, they'll come in the market, they go out of the market. There's new issuers that come in the market. I'm in contact with someone who said they're bringing a lot of new CDs and no, I do a lot of CDs. So they were asking me a lot of questions about it and I was trying to help them out. And so I'm hoping fairly soon, they told me there'd be a lot of names, I've never seen before. So of course I have, Templeton in mind because it would be wonderful. So I hope that happens, but it's not a matter of credit union or bank, or it's just the issuer that some are callable, some are not. Obviously, the callables typically have a higher rate because they want to entice you by having the option to call it away from you. But there are cases, I can make a case for both instances, but we have a pretty good mix of both.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions from? Any questions from the public? Seeing as this is a discussion only, I guess I would like to see staff bring back policy allowing us to invest in credit unions in the future, some future meeting.
Are there any other investment types that are available to us that you wish that are available to us, permissible by the state law, that we're currently not allowing or not permitted to invest in, that you would want to explore? Again, I think many of those are going to be more intricate, et cetera.
So like treasury bonds, you were
Yes.
talking, right?
That's what I was gonna ask about the treasury bonds.
So treasuries are a very safe option. So unlike the government agencies that are they're implied to be backed by the government, they're not insured. Treasury bonds are essentially the benchmark. So treasury bonds are a safe investment, but with the CDs, you're getting compensated above the treasury. So when a treasury comes out and they say, a 5-year treasury is, 3.5%. Well, I want to make sure that we're getting something much higher than 3.5%. And so if I'm showing you a 4.5 or 5% or whatever the case is, you're getting insured money similar to a treasury, but you're getting a lot more bang for your buck. You can do the treasury, but for example, I can show you CDs all day over 4% for 5 years, and 5-year treasuries are around 3.5%.
How
It
about,
fluctuates, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, but you're getting over it. There are, huge clients and institutional customers that are like, hey, I need to buy 50 million at a time. CDs is going to be that's going to be a ton of line items that may not be appropriate for them. But for you, in your case, we have a manageable amount. You guys are comfortable with the 250 limit, or a little less, because we make sure all the principal and interest is insured. And I think it's really the best fit for what you're trying to do. If you were comfortable and wanted to look at U.S. government agencies, widely purchased by California public funds, viewed relatively safe, doesn't have the technical insurance feature, but I don't think that the federal, unless you think the federal government's going down, then maybe all the banking system goes down, and I guess we'll all be in a whole different position. But the government agencies are still viewed as widely accepted, and that's about 1, 2, 3. That's a 5th item down that are U.S. agency obligations, and the ones currently there that are showing the best returns are ones that are callable. So unless you guys have a significant amount of money you're looking to put in and you don't want to reduce your line items, maybe that's an option because there's no 250 limit. But I think the course that the pace that we've been taking and the actions, it's been a safe, very simplistic, plain vanilla, conservative method that's really been effective. That's earning you guys a fantastic return every year.
I guess I'm curious as to long run for treasury bonds, if we do see a recession, and since we're reviewing our policy right now, wouldn't it be kind of wise as a safeguard to just have that option there as part of an investment choice if we see some kind of decline and we kind of need to gear away from CDs or whatnot?
Sure, I mean, I think that having this page, some people just literally copy the page, this is straight from the California code. That's nothing I created. I mean, you can even put in there, you know, all allowable investments by the California Code 53601. And then essentially you're covered by all these investments that you want to do that is already permitted by the state. If you don't want to do any other one ever, that's completely up to your discretion. Totally up to you. You know, just by having it in the policy doesn't mean you necessarily have to utilize it. But I think, like you mentioned, if you ever decide you want to buy treasuries, now you have the option. Or if you ever want to buy an agency or there was a really good deal, you have the option if you choose to do so. So, and I think to your point, the recession, what would happen is if we are in a recession and the economy's hurting, the tool that the Federal Reserve will use, I'm sure you guys are familiar with Jay Powell, the Fed chair, the first thing that they're going to do is, okay, we need to cut interest rates. And so they'll start cutting rates. And as you saw when they were, you know, freaking out about the economy, especially when COVID happened, everyone didn't know what was going to happen. They cut interest rates to zero because they were fear that no one was going to leave their house. I mean, no one knew what was going to happen. It was pretty scary. And so they cut interest rates to zero. And so you saw exponential growth in so many areas because money was very inexpensive and almost free essentially. And so that's the tool that they use. So while they're doing the opposite of cutting, right now they're tapering, not easing. They're not buying securities, they're selling securities. So the simple supply and demand, the more there is in the market, the higher the rates are going to go. I think the opposite will happen at some point when we get to a certain point, maybe the end of the year. You know, my crystal ball broke years ago. It's the old joke, you know, I mean, maybe the end of the year, maybe sooner, maybe a little bit later. At some point, they're going to have to do so because inflation will cool and they will want to get rates lower. You know, it's also expensive for them to issue, you know, the government to pay a high debt service. It's cheaper for them to pay 2% on treasuries than it is, you know, 4% on a treasury. So ideally, I think that's what they want to do.
So Mark, in your experience, are bank and credit union CDs always more competitive interest rate wise than treasuries?
Yes, definitely. And one of the reasons being is, some people look at it as a hindrance, but it's the 250 limit. Some people, you know, you can only buy 250 per institution. And so, you know, they need to be competitive because if they're paying the same as something else, you know, and you have a lot more money and you're talking about institutional or public funds, you may want to buy 500 or $1 million, but you're only limited to 250. So if I wanted to buy a government agency, even as I mentioned, which is better than what a treasury would be, the rates, that's a non-callable, for example, compared to a non-callable CD, there have been a few times in the last 15, you know, over 15 years I've been doing this where maybe the government agency is higher here and there, but typically the CDs will win the majority of the time, particularly in the non-callable department, which I think is a long-term great option for price appreciation also for the portfolio.
So I think if we amend we can amend the code to include whatever you'd like. Because we're a fairly small agency, we're talking about investing something under $20 million in all of the cash that we have. We're able to utilize most of the tools that we have. If we expand to credit unions, that might give us an opportunity to park a couple more $1 million in competitive credit unions. That'd be like maybe 8 or 12 CDs that might be out there that are competitive in credit unions and maintain our ladder structure without having to get too crazy. But if we were dealing with, like, say, a $200 million portfolio, we need more tools in order to park the money in other places. Because there just simply aren't enough banks and credit unions available.
Well, actually, speaking of that, a question just came to my head. Is there any way possible for us to increase our FDIC insurance limit from $250,000 to $500,000? I know, privately, if you have a joint account, your FDIC amount goes up to $500,000. Is that something possible that Templeton Community Services District set up their account somehow to increase it to $500,000?
It's a great question, and I wish I could say yes, but unfortunately, we are bound by the FDIC insurance limit. Like I mentioned earlier, you could do something, which I don't do, but, try to find a bank to put a treasury collateral, and it's a bigger ordeal, than just, hey, putting some money in the account, buying a CD, and it's there for you. But unfortunately, it's $250, but, I think it's okay, because I think that gives us just more variety. There really is a huge amount of banks that come with different issuers, so, I don't think you're gonna have an issue finding, CDs. I just pick and choose the ones I think are suitable and the best bang. I don't wanna just send you guys, hey, I saw this one here just to show you something. I wanna show you the best I can find. Is why maybe, I don't send CDs all the time to Natalie and Jeff, because I wanna pick the best stuff for you guys and be patient in a lot of cases.
Thank you.
Okay, I mean, happy with our current policy, if you had the CD.
Credit unions.
Credit unions rather, yeah. I mean, we look at this every year anyway, and I wouldn't make any big changes other than that right now.
And I would be curious about the bonds, just to give you more tools in your tool shed, especially because of the current instability of the financial world. So, I mean, we don't have to utilize it, but if we're looking at the policy now, why not?
Yeah, I mean, we're free to add any of these on the list, really, or the whole list. I mean, it's just, our policy is much more restrictive than what the government code permits, and so you can expand this list to the extent that you'd like to. So we could choose other tools. They probably, most of the tools won't give us a better return, and then some of them have a lot of restrictions that we probably wouldn't dabble with.
Are there particular ones that you have that concern with?
Well, like this list shows, we'd have to have in order for us to be a commercial paper investor, we'd have to have $100 million of investments available. And then you're limited to how much of the money you could put in there. So what ended up happening, like you might remember, like there was Orange County, essentially was trying to play an investment game. They were a very well-off county as it compares to many others, but they ran out of cash because of their investments were tied up and they were unable to meet their current needs. It led to a wholesale change about what local agencies can invest money into. This is 35 years ago now, but that's why this is such restricted. That's why the amount of time is limited to 5 years. And then this agency, like many others, chose to be much more conservative even further. We know we can get out of these CDs, right? We know we can get out of the CD if we're willing to take a big enough hit. And that's why I really would not want to end up with having, the majority of our investment money tied up in them. Because if push came to shove and you had a major emergency, you had a big cash flow need all at once, you wouldn't want to take a hit on, say, 2 or 3 years worth of maturing CDs, because that could be pretty substantial. So
I definitely see that with the credit union, but I'm also curious about some other diverse investment types, specifically the bonds, just because they are still relatively safe too. So
yeah, well, I think everything on here is relatively safe. I mean, we're not allowed to. You're not allowed to get too crazy, right? So outside of our trusts and things of that nature. So every option you have is pretty safe, pretty conservative. Our policy is just even somewhat more restricted, and maybe at the time, really when we first limped into this, the board was like, okay, well, you buy some CDs, but we don't want to go crazy. I think we were limited to like 10 or something originally, or 5, and we've just kept adding to it as the district's cash portfolio grew over time to increase our pool and to mitigate some of the risk. If you have all your money tied up in just LAIF, you've got no way to, have no long-term interest accruing. You don't know, LAIF is pretty competitive right now at maybe 3% or something, but we have no idea what it'll be a year from now. And so we know when we're buying these CDs now at 4.5% or something, we've got 5 years at 4.5%. So we've really, I've been trying to shy away from the call you know, callable, we're not, callable CDs. And keep in mind, I think the important part of our policy is really on the prior page. The order of the policy says we're to look out for safety, liquidity, and only then return on investment. So,
So I'm also open to having treasury bonds added to the policy. It doesn't mean that we have to invest in treasury bonds, but I think it gives us more flexibility by having it in
yeah,
there.
and it could come to a point where we had money available and maybe the treasury bonds are paying a rate that's better than a CD. At that point in time.
Yeah, we just wanna give the flexibility to
How about
hop
like-
on something without having to do another meeting,
Yeah.
another policy change, and if you see something that is for the benefit. Why
How
not
about
have it in the policy?
like muni bonds, like is that the first one,
Yeah.
local agency bonds?
Yeah, you mean like from a city or
Yeah.
something like that? Yeah, I mean, I've only been the issuance side, not the purchasing side, but yeah, I mean, so a lot of institutional investors will spread their money out with a lot of these various like municipal bonds and those kinds of things. I don't even know what the opportunity is for an agency our size to be in that market. But Mark, can you address that? I mean,
Yeah, some people do buy, it's not as prevalent. There are some taxable California buyers, because obviously you guys are not, you know, tax free, it doesn't matter. So the taxable offer obviously a higher yield. And then so you can buy some high obligation, you know, high quality obligations out there. Sometimes there's like a state of California bond that becomes available, and they're traded. And keep in mind, this is the same that would be traded as the CDs, the agencies, the treasuries. I mean, you know, it's how well you know the credit. If it's one of your neighbors and you feel comfortable and they have a high, you know, high quality rating. But I mean, even sometimes the munis, they're good options sometimes, but sometimes, you know, the ratings, I don't know, there's been some muni issues in the past. I haven't heard much. I know you guys know about Stockton, and there was a period of time, you know, with the great financial crisis here in 2008 and 9, where, you know, some different entities and public funds throughout California were having some issues. But I mean, I think if you're gonna say, hey, let's just do a few different things, you know, I'd sure add some treasuries just in case you ever wanted to. And the other one besides the credit unions is, you know, the US agency obligations. While they're not insured, they're high quality and people buy them. I have multiple districts that buy, you know, 500 to $1 million or 3 million or 5 million, whatever the case is, at a time in a single issuer. They may have a larger portfolio, but you could buy 250 or 500 if you wanted to of a US agency obligation, and it's
that's Freddie Mac or something like that.
correct. The four major are typically, you know, Federal Home Loan Bank, you know, consistent of the 13 home loan banks throughout the country that make up the Federal Reserve and that loan money to mortgagees and other banks and their funding rates. And then there's the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which do a lot of mortgages. And then there's the Federal Farm Credit Bank, which, you know, does a lot of ag related loans to help farmers and growers. As well. Those are like the four main ones, but there's a few other ones out there as well. But they're very widely, if you were purchasing them and something happened, God forbid, you and everyone would be in the same boat. Not that it's an excuse, but they're viewed very favorably as an investment vehicle. Like I said, the treasuries are great in certain circumstances, but typically these other CDs and the US agencies trade off of the treasury. So because it's not a US treasury, with minimal risk, increased risk, I guess you could say very little, they trade above what the benchmark of the treasury is. And so most people say, hey, well, you know, we're not taking much more risk. Let's get as much bang for our buck and try to, you know, get as much yield as we can. But of course, the first two items are checked, safety and liquidity. So then they say, hey, let's try to get a little more yield as opposed to just getting a treasury. But if there's ever a case or banks are all doing horrible and we need to exit and we want to look at treasuries, not a bad idea to have that in the agencies in the portfolio either.
So is there interest amongst the board then to permit not only credit unions, but also US treasuries, US agency obligations? As well, those were the two that he just addressed.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
I
then,
think
so,
we have a consensus.
okay, so in the policy that you're gonna bring forward, are the CDs gonna be the top priorities, and then if you wanna invest in the other ones, the board would be notified? How is that gonna?
Well,
work?
no, that's the issue. This is, you give us the direction. These things happen without your knowledge, right? The investment choices. So if you want the board to approve, let's say, a certain one of these things, we could add something like with board approval. But these are all super
Do
conservative.
the US agency obligations, I think that would require board approval, but.
I would
that's the
say
only-
we give them the investment options to invest in, and I just don't think the board should be doing that. I think that the policy says it's the general manager, and I think working with Capital or King Capital, I think is probably who you work with. To say, how do you invest across these asset classes?
I agree. I don't think
I
the
don't think
board
we
needs
should,
to be
yeah.
involved in the day-to-day operation and
because we set the policy and that's kind of the parameters that you operate from within.
Yeah, I mean, part of the issue is some of these choices would be made like, okay, let's say we have a CD maturing, and at that moment,
You have to make.
the treasury's better. If I have to, or US, if we have to agendize something, bring it here, it might be a week or two later, then all the circumstances have changed. Because the
Goes
pricing
away.
changes daily.
Yeah. Well, that's what we were saying. That's why we want to give you more tools,
yeah,
more
yeah.
options to work with.
Yeah.
Instead of just,
So I think you choose the things that you're comfortable with, and you know that, our strategies probably, we're comfortable with the CD approach. We'll probably would say, okay, Mark, let's take a look at some credit union CDs. And only if we got to a point where the circumstances changed, or there was, more bank failures, or some reason that we wanted to put money in US treasuries. Let's say we ran out of competitive CDs as an option, because we can only own one of each at these prices. It'd still maintain our FDIC insurance.
Well, and I think we've already identified in the policy, the priority or the goal and
Yes.
objectives for investing is the safety, the liquidity, and return on the investment in that order. So I think we're giving you then the tools. We've kind of expanded it with what we're proposing. And I think then I don't think there needs to be the board involvement thereafter. And this policy is going to be reviewed on an annual basis.
Yeah, and you see our
The treasurer's report
treasurer's
monthly.
and so you could always say, how come we're in that?
Yeah.
Why'd you choose that?
Yeah.
Say, well, we had a CD maturing, that was the best that was available at the time it
Yeah, so
matured.
we've got some oversight. So I'm comfortable with that.
So on the, let me just confirm, the US agency obligations is not insured, right?
Correct, the US agency, yeah, it's implicit, it's implied, in general consensus that, God forbid, just like in 2008, when, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, it was a financial crisis, they stepped in and made sure that they were stable and took, the government stepped in to make sure that they were able to be successful and maintain, because it's a vital part to the economy.
we don't necessarily have enough of the funds though, right, to invest in agencies.
I mean, we do, right? Well, we have another, but there's probably sufficient CD choices.
Yeah.
To tie up the amount of money that we really would be willing to tie up for 5 years. Again, and we're trying to keep this ladder strategy, so there's a similar amount of money in each of the 5 years. So if we went in now, we wouldn't want to take, let's say we wanted to invest $3 million additionally. We wouldn't want all that money to mature in 2027 or 2028. We'd want to spread it out so that it was constantly rolling through the system. So we might say, let's buy some 2-year CDs with it, 3-year CDs, 4-year CDs with it, so that we maintain our ladder approach. It doesn't have to be exactly 20% every year, but you wouldn't want half of it to be maturing in 1 year.
Okay,
Yeah, so we'll come back with a a revision to add credit unions, US treasuries, and US agencies as options.
Gary, you have any comments? Okay. Okay,
Thank you, Mark.
thank you, Mark, appreciate
Thank
it.
you guys, so nice meeting everyone, seeing everyone. If you guys ever have any questions or want to talk shop or want to learn about SUVs or anything else, please, get my information from Natalie and Jeff, and I'm happy to chat with you as much or as little as you want to know. I love this stuff and I talk about it all the time. So, I'm more than happy to do so and look forward to continue working with you guys for a while and keeping it safe and boosting cash flow for the district in a safe way. So I appreciate it. Good evening, everyone.
Good
Thank you.
night.
That's the worst sound I have ever heard.
Yeah.
Connection.
I mean,
Maybe
it
a
was
microphone
terrible.
or
He was
something.
moving back. and
Yeah.
forth.
This is microphone, whatever device he's using.
Yeah.
Next time.
Okay, moving right along, our next item is the 2022 fire annual report. Chief Peterson. I'd like to thank you for this. It's a very good report, I think, and it's well illustrated. You did a great job.
I do my best to bring you right into the action.
There you go.
Well, good evening and thank you. We'll go ahead and present to you the 2022 annual report. The thing I'd like the board to keep in mind is this report is created to highlight the accomplishments of 2022. There have been some items that have taken place in the last few months that won't be captured in this report that are significant items, but it will be captured in next year's report. So just keep that in mind. Some of the items that kind of stand out is this year we haven't had the significant loss of, last year we haven't had the significant loss or turnover of reserve personnel. It still is significant, but not as significant as prior years like 2021, where we lost, I think, a total of 14, like within a 1 month period. And then this last year, we've lost 6 the entire year. It's kind of stabilized with the staffing format that we've done this last year, and even getting better into 2023 this year. The other aspect is, we've got a solid group of captains, Brandon Wall, Philip Goldblum. Next year, you'll get the report that indicates we did lose Captain Andy Klein. Rob Baker is currently acting in a captain's role at the moment.
I'm sorry, I have a question on that. So are you hiring another captain or is it?
We're keeping Rob in that position for right now, and then we're gonna make determinations based on, and then probably go out to hire.
We do have a vacancy. It's just we haven't begun recruiting for it yet.
So again, in 2022, we did go out and, these are some of the accomplishments from last year, is we got an $850,000 SAFER grant to hire 2 fire engineers. We received an AFG grant that was initially, for our airfill station. And through some, modifications and an amendment that we put in through FEMA and the SAFER grant, or I'm sorry, the AFG grant, we were able to modify that and not lose the money, but be able to put it towards what are called new P25 compliant radios, which brings us into compliant with dual band capability, which is required now because of the stuff that we see going on between police and fire and other communication difficulties, listening to 2 different frequencies. So for example, listening to police, fire can now listen to police and identify where an active shooter might be and not get into that particular zone. So that's a huge component to be able to get these kind of radios and get those installed into our units now. Pretty much every fire agency in the county has P25 compliant radios now, and now we're jumping into that, so that's good news. Again, we got another OTS grant this year. That bought us a set of what we call combi tools. And then we've got some shoring items which go on our engine, which help secure vehicles when they are rolled over, those types of things. It helps secure them so we can do extrication on them and they don't roll over on us any further. Community events, we had our trick or treat on Main Street and our 4th of July, obviously. Every year, we've had some good station tours this year, which is awesome. And then we had our Santa parade again. So those are some of the items that stood out this year. As far as call volume goes, we have seen increases throughout the year. Obviously, 2020 was our COVID year. We saw a significant dip that year. And then it's gradually increasing again. What I will note is I'm still having difficulty with some of the stats that we're getting. And you might see some differentiation in numbers with call volume, response times, those types of things, because I'm actually currently working with the San Luis County Fire Chief to sit down with the sheriff as soon as possible to try and identify a better way to get information. So let me back up a little bit to describe the way a call comes in. And I think I've described this to the fire committee, but maybe not to the full board. When a person dials 911, that call, because we live in Templeton, the unincorporated area, goes to the sheriff's department. If they're calling from their cell phone, it can also go to the CHP. But typically to the sheriff's department. The sheriff's department is what's called our PSAP, our public safety answering point. And then they transfer it to the San Luis County ECC for fire. That's who dispatches us. The sheriff's department also deals with MedCom. MedCom dispatches the ambulances. So there have been times in the past, and these are one of the other issues, where MedCom will dispatch the ambulance. They forget to push the call to ECC, which is our dispatch, and then we're delayed. And now the ambulance is almost on scene before we get dispatched, or we have an ambulance coming from San Luis, and we've been delayed in getting the call and delayed getting the person some help. So I want to rectify those issues, and that's why I'm pushing the county fire chief to have a sit down with the sheriff to be able to identify what we can do to create a better link between our sheriff and our ECC command center. And some of that's going to be rectified by the new building that's coming actually in town. Our new dispatch center, they will be in the same room instead of about 4 miles apart.
So we wouldn't be the only agency that has that issue then.
Correct.
So,
Yes, at county chiefs meetings, it's been a topic of discussion.
okay.
Yeah, and we're kind of getting to that point of.
And
is
at this
gotta be-
point, it's human error as opposed to systematic.
I wish I knew.
Okay,
Yeah. I don't know if it's a system issue. I don't know if it's a software issue.
okay.
I don't know if it's a human factor. But regardless, it's got to get rectified because like.
But I think you'd have to figure out is how is it occurring? Is it
Correct.
human or is it system? To be able to come up with how do you fix it?
Correct, exactly.
Okay,
So you can see some of the call increases here with regards to where we're at from previous years, 21. And 984, what county fire shows us was at 986. Our actual numbers are a little bit different than that, but I use the county dispatch numbers to identify the total call volumes that they showed us having in 2022, and that was 984 calls. And then the 3-year average, 925. Call volumes, this is interesting because it didn't really change in our percentages. We're still at roughly 65% medical calls. And then 9% fires, and then they're broken down into the different categories. Read that from here, 8% other, 9% public assists, 6% vehicle accidents and rescues, and 3% hazardous conditions or hazmats. These are the response times I was talking about. From the information I'm able to get, looks like our response times have gone down, and for the most part, not by a whole lot. I would have anticipated a little better decrease, but these are some of those factors that I'm running into with how calls are transferred. So you can see the response times that for fires are right around 7 minutes and 52 seconds to get on scene. And that's typically delayed a little bit with regards to medical calls, which are 5.44, because there is a significant amount of gear that our personnel are putting on, which delays them a little bit before they get to this and actually respond. And then again, hazardous materials, I do want them slowing down on those types of incidents and not rushing in. But overall, we are meeting that criteria of under 6 minutes, 90% of the time. This is what we get from County Fire every year, or our dispatch center. And it shows we received or responded to 49 structure fires throughout the year, 23 vegetation fires, and 4 vehicle fires. Obviously, the bulk of the calls for us is medicals, 574 calls.
And Tom, for these, this would be only in our primary response area, or is this also mutual aid?
Mutual aid.
Yes, so a lot of these fires, like the structure fires, are not gonna be in Templeton.
Correct. Yeah, I think last year we had a total of 3 in Templeton. And I take that back, a couple more. So what these also include are when we're dispatched to the call of a structure fire and we get on scene. And for example, a couple of months ago, we responded to Golden Meadow for a structure fire. We got on scene and it was lint behind the dryer that was on fire. Was it a structure fire? Technically, yes. But it didn't really go anywhere, and we were able to put it out with our little extinguisher and ended the threat. So that would be considered one of those responses. But as the general manager mentioned, the majority of these, 49 of them, that's a lot throughout the year. But that's broken up between Atascadero, Paso County, and us. Okay, so medical aids. And then again, a larger number, these public assists, 111 of those. And then in district total, what county is saying is 839 of the 984 calls. Okay, and then you can see the difference. Atascadero, we don't go to Paso Robles nearly as much as you would think, because we don't have a first in auto aid agreement with them like we do with Atascadero. They only call us when it's a second due type situation. Excuse me. I apologize, should have had 2021 training hours on here. So as we go down, we can see that the training hours have increased and the per hour per person training has also increased. We are climbing closer to that number of 240. I anticipate next year we should reach it. Things have really loosened up with regards to training. We're seeing a lot more opportunities come into the county and available for us within the district to also to actually do the necessary training. And good or bad, as a result of COVID, we're seeing a lot more online training that we can get continuing education hours for. Fire prevention wise, our inspection numbers, are relatively the same. I think this might have gotten skewed. And I apologize. I think we were at 88. And essentially, I just want to. Yeah, so 27, rough sprinkler inspections, 25, weed rechecks, 18, developer meetings and, consults, and then, for a total of 88. But the percentages, over here, relatively unchanged, and, that's something that we're seeing a consistent numbers on. This year, we have had, quite a few more, plan submittals, than the previous year, and some of them are still in the pipeline. And we're waiting for those to receive permits and those types of things to actually start the development. But it got pretty busy this last year with regards to what people were submitting. And some of that, honestly, and I've seen it for years within the fire prevention end of things, is people try and beat that new code adoption also. If they see a new code adoption coming out, they try and get their project in before they have to be subject to the new development codes. Our in-school education programs are back on track. We didn't have any modifications to classroom interactions this last year, which was great. We got to get out, actually sit with kids, and we had a lot of field trips come in to the station this year. The kids love that. And then we had our stop, drop and roll, kitchen safety, grease fire post, stove top drills that we share with the community on our website, and try and educate, you know, our at-home people also. Okay. As far as our apparatus is concerned, I know 7195 has been kind of an ongoing event, especially for the fire committee and board. We've had to appreciate the money that was put into that piece of apparatus this year. It's now gone up to about 169,000 total miles on the engine. We put approximately 6,800 miles in 2022. And it was out of service for several months throughout the year till that part of it was that full month that it was out of service to get the necessary fixes to keep it operational. The pump, the transmission were the two main things that were going on with it. We still have a variety of issues that are kind of nagging us with some air leaks. The air leaks, for the most part, have been fixed, so that's good. We're not having to run our compressor as much and plug that in as much. And but we are still seeing some valve failures because of the plumbing within the actual pumping system itself. So we're occasionally having to rebuild some valves and things of that nature. Let's see, we do have a couple of electrical issues we're chasing down. The biggest issue we saw this year, honestly, was the fact that some of the compartments, and we just got that new set of jaws, extrication tools, the jaws of life. And we saw so much water, obviously, this year that our compartments aren't sealed like they would be on a new engine. There's been a lot of modifications to that engine over the year, And there were a lot of leaks that got into compartments. It actually shorted out one of our brand new electronic tools, or our battery operated power tools. It was under warranty, it was repaired, and the actual sales rep said it shouldn't have done that because they're supposed to be able to operate in the rain. So it might have been more of a deficiency on just what we got, but it is now corrected. So again, it ran about 757 calls for service throughout the year. And then approximate repair cost for 2022, maintenance, labor, parts, etc. 70,500 roughly. 7160, our type 3. Last year we logged 3,751 miles. For a total of 6,100 miles on that engine now. Ran on a total of 40 calls. Again, it's our wildland engine, so it doesn't go on a lot of medical aids and those types of things unless our type 1 is out of service. No current issues, it's running well. The annual service had been completed at the end of the fire season, and it's running well. It had the opportunity to go out on the the Southern California fire initially, and then went up north for 3 different fires, and it was gone for 14 days. And we got reimbursement through Cal OES on that. 7130 is now the old rig that I used to drive, and it has become a utility vehicle for us. It's working very well for that. We've had many opportunities where we've had to run items like batteries back for the engines, pieces of equipment, materials, Home Depot runs, those types of things. This thing has worked out great for that issue. The only problem we have is still some transmission issues. We've had it looked at. They can't diagnose anything. It's just one of those things that it occasionally slips. So we're just keeping an eye on it. Backing up really quick, it ran 43 calls for service. Those were mostly calls I ran on. The new vehicle is the Tahoe, which is Command 7100 or Chief 7100, 4,700 miles, no issues. It's a command use vehicle and is doing very well. These are the 2 vehicles we've sold. I'm just kind of updating the board on that. 7155 was sold a couple of years ago, 7145 last year. Both were the proceeds from those sales went into asset replacement to hopefully look at a new engine. And this is our current staff. And with one exception, and then we'll update that next year. With that, that ends the report, and I'm available for any questions.
I just have more of a comment, and it's really just to acknowledge Captain Wall and Captain Goldblum. Those 2 individuals are just the rock of Templeton Fire, both of whom have been working at Templeton Fire how long?
I think Captain Goldblum's been 3 years now.
But he was.
He was here in a different capacity previously, so he's
3 years full-time.
10 years about
Yeah,
Okay.
affiliation.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Captain Wall, I mean,
Captain Wall's been here, well, so I left in 2011, and he was here during that period of time. He was actually one of my firefighters, and then so since probably 2010, so 13, 14 years, 2009-ish maybe.
yeah, I mean, because they have been the constant in the fire department. So, and I appreciate your leadership, but I just want to acknowledge that those 2 are just the constant in that fire department. They're kind of the glue, I think. And I just want to recognize their commitment to the fire department.
Captain Wall, and thank you for that. Yes, Captain Wall and Captain Goldblum have been as Captain Goldblum told me one time, he goes, "We are your ticks. You're not getting rid of us." And I appreciate that sincerely.
Well, they know where all the skeletons are.
Yeah. And so with that being said, that they have a commitment and they are dedicated in this department. And it's a sense of loyalty that you don't see that often. And those two have a sense of loyalty and they have a sense of buy-in into this department that you
We're
don't see
fortunate.
around. Yeah, you don't see around a whole lot. And I'm seeing that with our new engineer, Rob Baker. So that's outstanding.
Good.
I'll second that, but don't tell him I said it.
I will, it's our secret.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, well, great report, thank you, appreciate it. I really appreciate that you're making an effort to try to reduce, having a meeting in order to reduce our response time. I mean, that's important, that's obviously it was our goal to making sure to keep the fire department in Templeton, so I really appreciate that. And it'd be great to see the response time and the fire continue to reduce. One question I have, we had talked about this, a couple of years ago. I know you were gonna start a program to inspect the businesses to go in and, has that program started or where does that stand?
Yeah, so essentially, we have started with some of what we call our essential facilities, schools. And we've actually started in the apartments now. So we inspected, and I've had the numbers up there. Grab them real quick, but I think we did 20 different apartment units. And those are typically when we're 4 or more units over, that's when we look at inspecting them. A 3 or a triplex, typically we're not inspecting those. But if it's 3 or more, then we look at the state mandate to inspect those. And we've hit pretty much every apartment complex in the district this last year. So now we're putting together the program and Captain Wall and I are working on the form that we're gonna go into the businesses with. And then it's gonna be a courtesy inspection that we're gonna provide to the business and indicate that, hey, next year, probably gonna be a little more stringent on identifying and showing you the infractions that you might have. But yeah, we want to start it off on the right foot.
Yeah, making sure those fire extinguishers are up to date and all that,
Yeah, no extension cords, no extinguishers, no,
And then, I can't remember the donation that was made, for the equipment that we got, for the machine we got for the, air tanks. Was that done in 22 or?
that was this, yes, in 22,
Well,
so.
it was committed in 22, received in 23.
No,
Correct.
okay, so that would go on next year's. annual
It will go on next year's annual report.
Perfect, thank you, appreciate it. Great report, thank you.
Any other comments? Gary? Okay, I'll make the motion that we approve the Fire and Emergency Services Annual Report for 2022.
I'll second the motion.
Roll call, please.
Directors Peterson,
Yes.
Logan,
Aye.
Bardonish.
Aye.
Gardini is absent and Pearson.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again, Tom. General Manager report.
And just a couple of items actually that I wanted to call your attention that over the last couple of days. Actually, today there was, just in case you hear about it. One of the mid-state solid waste vehicles that ended up with a hydraulic fluid leak. And proceeded to continue along its route and made. Well, I don't have a count, but dozens and dozens, hopefully not hundreds of stops. And left a hydraulic fluid every time it made a stop and picked up a green can. So Mid-State Solid Waste was out this afternoon, abating this hydraulic fluid. So it's kind of oil and you might something similar like a transmission fluid. It's greasy, messy. left a stain in all these locations. So they were out picking it up with the kitty litter at every location. It looked like they're getting around pretty good, but in case you hear about that, that's happening and working with, we've got a few complaints about it, and so I'm working on that. We've updated you a few times on Evers Park and our progress with trying to get this plan resubmitted. I did meet with the adjoining property owner yesterday. We're asking them to sign a authorization to allow us to grade within 2 feet of the property line. Because our plans call for that, and the county has a prohibition against it, but they said if we, because of the particular circumstances, one, there's an existing grade within 2 feet, actually across the property line, and our work needs to cross property lines to install this ADA compliant sidewalk. And they're being cooperative, so I think we'll be able to cross that hurdle and get these plans resubmitted with the county. And then finally, I wanted to confirm some of you had expressed interest in doing emergency operations center training with the city of Paso Robles. The elected official training date, I believe, is next Tuesday, the 25th. And we got confirmation that we can get you in. We have seats for you if you'd still like to do it. So I believe
I can't
It
do it.
was Wayne and Naveed.
David, okay.
Yes, I have it on my calendar.
You got it on a calendar and
I have a conflict already.
You know, I also now have a conflict, so I'm not gonna be able
to make it.
to make it.
Okay,
Sorry, but I really wanted to go.
so we'll confirm
Okay, I'll just,
your board member Fardanish and get you the particulars of the time. And this is all being done at the Public Safety Center.
also, Public Safety Center.
I think that was like most of a day.
It was 6 hours, or will be 6 hours.
Do I get to put out fire?
Unfortunately, it's not quite that,
You need to do
Exciting.
a ride around.
I wasn't gonna say.
I don't think you're gonna be leaving.
I like it. It's interesting stuff to me,
More than uniform.
but it may not be as exciting.
Childhood fantasy from firefighter for you.
Anytime you want
Yes.
to.
Those are the items that I had flagged.
Okay, any questions from the board?
Yes. It's been several months that we had approved to take care of the smell that comes on, the smell, right?
Yes.
Chevron. What is the status on that?
It's a smelly subject. So I think the latest is we're expecting installation in early May. We did run into several delays in this process, and it's been a sore subject. I'm not a fan yet, certainly. It's just been a really cumbersome process to work through the vendor's requirements, but we are on their schedule for installation. And I think, the whole process of installing and getting up and running is just a few days.
Okay.
It's not a major construction project, but yeah, I'm concerned because as we hit some warmer weather, it's probably gonna lead to some additional, more noticeable odors.
Yeah, so that's what I was hoping.
Yeah.
I know originally we had talked about 6 months, so that's being taken care of. Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions, Jerry? Okay, committee reports, I think we have 3 of them. Pescadero Basin Groundwater Sustaining Agency, the Water Resources Advisory Committee, and Administration and Finance Committee. Are there any questions from the board, any public? Okay, and then we have some activity update reports, engineering, finance, fire and emergency services, parks, rec and solid waste, and utility. Are there any questions? Sure. Okay. Are there any comments or reports that any of the directors would like to make? See none, we will move right along to Okay, I will adjourn the meeting and then the board will be going into closed session. And I will report on closed session at the beginning of next meeting. So with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you. Thanks, Jeremy.
Jerry.
Have a good evening.
Nice, Tom.